track the audio. Well, Mason, welcome to ID Fitness Podcast.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So let's just start from day one. Let's start where you're born and raised and just kind of walk your journey as much as you want to where you are now.
Okay.
You could do a 5-minute, 15-minute, doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, to start my journey, I was born and raised in Water Valley, Mississippi, which is 15 minutes from Oxford.
I did not know that.
So it's actually super close.
Yeah.
Grew up there. Ended up moving to South Pontotoc, Mississippi, which is a much bigger school. When I was 14 years old, my mom got remarried, so moved there, and that's where I graduated high school. And through high school, I was into athletics. I wasn't good. I tried really hard,
Yeah.
I would say. But it was a lot of fun. Basketball was fun. I'm kind of built for basketball, so I kind of went well with tall, lanky people. And did pretty good towards the end, my senior year, but not good enough to play college. And then I went to a community college, ICC, did my associates in athletic training, because I kind of knew my mindset was towards athletics. Like, I love fitness, I love pushing myself in that kind of realm. So I just went down that path. And then after ICC ended, it was time to go to the big boy school, a university, and I just wasn't ready. So I ended up joining the Navy instead, and I was in the Navy for 6 years as a radar tech, which is kind of ironic because when I first met you, I was talking about that job. It's so far from fitness, you can't get any further. I mean, you just sit in a room, you type on Excel for hours at a time, you're analytical, you're constantly tracking things, and you take lunch breaks, and that's about it. You track stuff all day long, and you watch the watcher, is what they say. Watch the watcher. He watches, you watch. He watch, you watch. And once I got to a certain point in my Navy career, I knew that I was ready to go. So I got out of the Navy at 26. I started Ole Miss at 27, and I just went down that path, and I thought med school might be for me, but it was not. Grades weren't there. So I ended up going exercise science instead, and I just fell in love with it, kind of reinvigorated that passion that I lost from the Navy, because the Navy kind of beat me pretty good. That mental grind of just analytical thinking all the time and not any physical kind of affected me. But once I got out of that environment, I was able to really do well. And started working pretty much immediately when I got to Ole Miss at Rebel Body. I was there with Coach Lawrence Morocco, great guy. He gave me my first shot with clients. Like anyone else, you just learn. You adapt, you listen. And I met a lot of really cool people, a lot of people that were some older than me, some younger than me, but I was able to adapt, to that environment. And then after that, shortly after, I moved to Shed, where I'm at now, where I'm the director. It's a lot of fun. It's a really high energy environment.
Wow.
So it's different. It's a different flavor, but I feel blessed that I can do both realms of fitness, where I'm also an instructor working in the classroom, but I'm also able to provide that one-on-one that I literally started with. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to go back because I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
How many siblings did you have?
So growing up, I had one older brother, and that was the only sibling I knew. My dad remarried when I was 1. So my stepbrothers and sisters were kind of distant. So I know them, I know of them, I just don't know a lot about them.
Got it. Now, your real dad, where was he?
So my real dad, he is in Eupora, Mississippi.
Okay,
Yep.
Got it. Following. Now, the radar stuff,
Mm-hmm.
dive into that a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? What are you tracking? What were you guys doing?
Yeah. So as a radar technician, a cryptologic technical is what it's called. I would track aircraft, submarines, other ships, just to make sure the vessel we were on is safe. And when you have that kind of job, you work in that secret environment where everything is classified. You don't really get days off. They say we're like constant weathermen. We got to keep an eye on everything. So even when you're not on a boat doing your job, you're on land doing your job. And that's why I said you track the tracker. So you're tracking all these ships, aircraft, and subs, and the other guy on the boat is tracking the exact same ships, aircrafts, and subs, and y'all just kind of communicate back and forth. So a lot of analytical stuff, a lot of memorization. And the reason why it was kind of odd for me to get that job. I never complained about it. I just didn't understand it because when I went to MEPS, they say MEPS is
Wait, what's MEPS?
so MEPS is your final stop before going to the military.
Got it.
So MEPS is where you go, you get checked, you blood work, all the exams they do, they weigh you, all that stuff. Basically decide if you're healthy to go to the Navy. But then MEPS day 2 is where you pick your job. And this is where I felt like God may have had an interesting plan for me because when I showed up, I was like, well, this guy's going to sit me down. He's going to give me a list of jobs to pick from. He's going to say, pick. I was like, okay, cool. So he gives me a list, and there's one job, cryptologic technician technical. And I said, okay, I don't know what that is. He didn't know either. He said, tell you what, go take a lunch, come back. I'll have some information for you, and we'll talk about it. And the funny thing is, CJ, he turned into a total salesman when he came back from lunch. He was like, dude, I've got the pitch of, like, listen to this, man. You're going to be tracking some hardcore, gnarly stuff. Like, it's going to be great. Your A school's in Pensacola. And he was right about that. The A school was fun. Pensacola, Florida was a lot of fun. So he was right on that one. So, yeah.
Did you track anything that was worth tracking that you're like, oh, hey, guys, this could be bad?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there anything you can share?
Yeah, because it's known, just paying attention to different threats at different times is really important. And I'll just say, without getting too specific, something was seen that shouldn't have been there. And when I caught it, it was a big disturbance. And the funny part was we were doing some exercises. We were practicing. And I caught it. And I thought, maybe my computer's just acting up. Let me recheck. Every time I rechecked, it came back up. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it was an issue. And it was funny because, they were going through their practice runs, this and that. And I had to stop the exercise. And I said, sir, can you come here for a second? He's like, what's wrong? I said, I think you need to let the CO know this. And he looks at my screen, and he doesn't know what he's looking at. So he had to have a couple people verify. And then when he realized this could be an issue, everything had to go down. So that's what happened. So that was pretty crazy,
So was that the craziest story that you've ran into?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now you went to Ole Miss. You studied exercise science.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pursue your master's too, or did you get your bachelor's?
Yes, I ended up completing my undergrad, and then when COVID happened, it was a strange time for academics. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do my master's right away, but I figured, I've come this far, just go ahead and jump in. So I started my master's right after undergrad.
Wow.
Yeah, completed that. Toyed around with the idea of doing a PhD, but then I decided, well, let me just go into coaching and see what I can do with what I have.
Now, what made you pursue master's? I know obviously during COVID, what inspired you to go?
Really, there was one teacher in particular at Ole Miss that kind of elbowed me and nudged me, and he's like, hey, your grades are good, you listen well, you participate well in school. I think you should take that next level because it's only going to benefit you, and it's also going to help the clients that you coach because now you've got that extra layer of understanding. And I think he was definitely right because when I got to the master's, the undergrad was great. Ole Miss was a great experience, loved it. But when you get to graduate school, now you have to do critical thinking, and you have to really, really think about what you're saying and what you're giving, and that has paid huge dividends for my clients that I have now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, who was that teacher?
Do
you remember?
Yeah, it was Dr. LaPrenzi.
I didn't meet him.
At Ole Miss.
Because I went to Ole Miss too.
Great guy.
I didn't meet. Now, during your master's experience, what was your favorite class?
My favorite class would probably have been Aging in the 21st Century with Dr. Del Arco because he was so kind, and it was just interesting to kind of take a step back. When you're young, you don't think about dying much. You don't think about your body degrading, but we're all going to get worse. Like, we're going to get older. Father Time is undefeated. And that class was a nice little wake-up call. Like, hey, you can still exercise when you're 80, but it's not going to look like it did when you were 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. And I think that was really, really cool.
I think I remember taking that class. I didn't do my master's, but I for somehow maybe squeezed in it. I don't remember, but one of the things I remember from the class was you're just drying out as you get older. I'm just like, that is a weird way to look at it, but it's so true.
And it's funny because guys like me and you who we try our best to like maintain and build, and we're trying to get constant protein and grams, and got to get that gram per pound. He preached about people who eat less tend to live longer, which was very strange to me. I would have thought the right opposite. But people who eat less don't gain as much fat, they don't have as many health concerns, and they tend to live longer.
That is so true. That's exactly what I learned too.
Yeah.
And there was also I don't know if it was that case, but it was a rat study, and they overfed rats, and then they fed them just what they got, and then they starved the rats, and the rats were actually getting starved just enough to survive, actually live the longest.
Yeah.
Which was crazy to us. I mean, obviously it's not humans, but it's still blown away research. You're like, overeating is things. That's the conversation I want to get into too, is a lot of people see Instagram, Facebook, you name it, TikTok, about bodybuilders and the information they're putting out. And most of them are just hobbyists. Nothing wrong with that. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they're staying healthy and fit. But they're selling this as it's health. And me and you both know that if you're actually pursuing bodybuilding, it is not health.
No.
So kind of dive in that hole and what you have learned through that process.
Yeah, I've never personally worked with any bodybuilders, but I've definitely talked to some coaches that have done a competition or two, and I think it's kind of dangerous to put yourself in that world because, like you said, it's something that you do for a short time. It's not super sustainable because it's so hard. I mean, they starve themselves to a certain point so they can look shredded, and they just can't maintain that, and then they work out like an absolute monster, and they're able to do that because of a little bit of help, from what they're taking to help them bounce back. That mere mortals would never survive. Like, I can't do certain bodybuilders' workouts because I would just be tanked, but they can because of their testosterone and their ability to come back. So.
Yeah, I had one intern here. He was a bodybuilder and did some shows and stuff, and I asked him like, how was the eating? And he was like, you have to become a professional eater.
Yeah.
He said he had to wake up in the middle of the night because he couldn't get enough calories and to eat a meal and then go back to sleep. Just because he's trying to push that limit of natural and just food to grow into the natural weight division class that he was in. Because obviously there's classes you can join that you can do steroids, and that gives you an edge. But if you're doing natural, you have to eat a lot.
That's right.
And steroids you do too, but it's really essential for natural people to eat. And I thought that was funny. He said, I would have peanut butter and honey and chocolate, and I would just take a couple scoops and go back to sleep. And he's like, I knew it was going to be short term, but he was exhausted.
Yeah. It's tough. You just can't sustain that kind of living for long. That's why after their show is done, they just gorge themselves because they're hungry, they're dehydrated. Certain actors do that, whenever they're getting ready for a role. Hugh Jackman's pretty well known for talking about the headaches he endured when he was doing Wolverine because he just had to look like some literal beast, and he did. He looked great. But if you're being paid to suffer, it's a lot easier than when you're not, so, yeah.
And I think that's an interesting point you brought in too, is just like these guys are shredded, but I think we forget and we picture that as health and fitness.
Yeah.
And it's just not.
No, definitely not.
If you actually, it seems like you got to have a good healthy body fat percentage. I mean, would you agree? What would you say on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to understand that you have a genetic ceiling as far as how big you can get, and you just need to be happy with how you're built. Everybody's built just a little bit different, and if you have a little fat, that's okay. That's okay. You don't want to be shredded because if you take away your quality of life to do it, then it's not really worth it. And I think that's why bodybuilding is so dangerous, because once you've taken something that can enhance you so much, you don't want to stop. And then you run into the issue of literally having your blood checked by a professional doctor for the rest of your life because you've tanked your own testosterone, and now you've got to have some help, and that's the fear,
And have you ever got to like a pretty low body fat percentage?
Yeah.
How did it make you feel? Because I know how it made me feel, but I want to know, like, how did it make you feel?
It made me feel weak. All my lifts were going down, and I just had no ability to push anything. My workouts, I used to be able to do an hour and a half and be fine, but then 45 minutes, I was ready to go home.
Do you know what percentage of body fat you were?
I mean, it was low. It was about 6 or 7. It was crazy low.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already pretty much a lean guy, so getting leaner isn't too hard. But I'm the opposite. I want to eat more so I can feel better versus how I look.
Right. And so in wrestling, I was like 5. It was 6%, 5.9. But I just remember that because I was just like, I got in the 5%, and I couldn't recover. I had horrible sleep. My acne was out of the world, and I had huge brain fog. But I didn't know that at the time until I started to put my body fat percentage back up for football. And I was like, man, I feel great.
Yeah.
You forget. And I was like, did you feel a recovery when you're asleep or anything like? Did you have any symptoms like that or not really?
Not that I remember. I didn't stay super that lean for long. I mean, not something I'm interested in.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel good.
No,
I tell people all the time, it doesn't.
I think that's also why, I've shifted my focus from, oh, wow, this bodybuilder looks amazing to, people like Aaron Rodgers, who is a professional athlete, and he looks fine. He's fit.
Tom Brady,
he's fit. He doesn't need, like, the most shredded body to just be healthy and live longer. I mean, you just take care of yourself,
And that's what I've noticed, too, is just if you see an Olympic athlete walk around, because they're getting tested all the time. Yeah. And you wouldn't know if they're an athlete. You would say, oh, man, they're athletic, but you wouldn't think they're Olympian.
Right. Well, everybody was losing their minds about that video of Patrick Mahomes in the quarterback show, and he took off his shirt, and it's like, come on, man. He just, the way it was explained to me from an old coach, you just need to be strong enough to do your job really well. He's a quarterback. His job is to work on his mind, work on his technique, make sure his cardio is where it needs to be, and do the job, which is throw the ball. And if he could do that, who cares what he can bench press?
And what's crazy is the bigger you get, your degrees of freedom changes. Mm-hmm. And so if Patrick did get bigger and put on muscle, it could affect how he throws the ball.
Exactly. And then if you affect his shoulder rotation, that's his moneymaker. So, yeah.
Wow.
Totally see that.
Now, you mentioned protein, and I want to go down this hole because a lot of people don't realize how important protein is.
Yeah.
What is some of the misconceptions? What are some of the things that you have over and over with your clients, whether it's in the group fitness model at Shed Fitness or the one-on-ones when you're doing this to the side? What are some of these conversations you're having with, and what are the feedback you're getting?
Well, a lot of people don't understand protein is one of those things that your body doesn't store well. So you have to constantly keep eating it. Carbs you can store for energy, but you don't want your body to be so depleted that it takes your muscle, because your muscle is so important. Skeletal muscle is literally life. I mean, if you don't have strength, you're going to get injured more often, and you're going to stay injured longer, and it's just this big spiral effect. So a lot of my clients I talk to about protein, especially women, are really astonished when I say, hey, try and get close to your body weight in grams, but if that's crazy because you're used to eating 40 grams a day, maybe just start with half that number and just build yourself up to it where you can be consistent and kind of see how you feel, how you move better and how you recover better. Because if you're not getting protein, you're building a house and you're breaking it down. That's literally what you're doing. So
that's one of the experience I've had. I've looked at tons of nutrition logs, and that's one of the things that I constantly see is the 40 to 30 to 50 gram mark of protein, specifically for women in college girls that I was looking at. I was like, whoa. And then as soon as you get them above 80 grams per day, let's just say they're 5'4", 130 pounds, their hair starts growing, their nails start growing, their skin becomes healthier, they're recovering better, and they're just like blown away because Big Pharma is telling you like, hey, if you have acne, you need to take medicine for it.
Yeah.
And I've never seen food. I mean, I've never seen medicine work as good as food does with skin issues. Have you ever seen any of that?
No, I think if you've got skin issues, eating healthier and just drinking plenty of water is a big thing.
Yeah.
So
And I just didn't realize how many people were dehydrated.
yeah, that's another one too.
And the crazy about that is it affects your sleep tremendously when you're dehydrated, because you can't go cell division at night. You can't recover. Like, it is insane. What are some of the tricks and habits that you do with your clients, like how to drink more water throughout the day, or what kind of type of conversations do you have with them?
Mainly, I just tell them just try to do half an ounce per body weight, and try to shoot for that. But if you're
I like that.
yeah, if you're going throughout your day and you're finding yourself thirsty, you should be drinking before you get thirsty. Thirsty is a bad sign. That means your body's it's craving it, so you need it. Yeah, and just letting them know that every muscle in your body needs water. So every cell in your body, like you said, needs water.
Yeah.
So it's critical.
What are some of the lifts that you do for your one-on-one clients that, if they listen, like in a sense degree, because you got to, in one-on-one clients, there's tons of ways to get people strong. But if you had to choose, what are some of the lifts that you're like, hey, I really like these lifts because based off what I've seen and done, it just works really well to get people strong?
Yeah. Well, to get people really strong depends on the client. If it's a woman I'm training, I try to focus more on upper body strength with shoulders. Try to more build them with push-ups, because I find that even though push-ups are considered endurance exercise, they're actually strength, depending on what level you start with. And big thing is you want to just build confidence. Build consistency and confidence at the same time. I had a client about an hour ago. We were working on push-ups, and I had her do them on the floor, and it was really tough. I mean, she got 2 reps and kaput. That was it. So for her, that's strength. But if we're not working on that right now, I elevate her. Now she can really practice her form, and suddenly 2 becomes 8, 8 becomes 10, 10 becomes 15, and now we're rolling. So push-ups are a really good one. That's a staple for most people.
And you say you incline them?
Yep.
Okay, got it. And what do you use for incline, so that way the audience can do progressions?
Use a bench. You can use a couch. You can use pretty much anything to get you off the floor, because that angle really affects a lot of things. So yeah.
And how many do you have a rep in mind that you're like, hey, when they're at this incline, I want them to get this many reps for this many sets, and then we'll work our way down? Or where do you judge it at? Because every client's different, I know, but let's just say a woman.
Really, I look more about their effort and where they're starting to struggle. If they've been doing push-ups for a couple of weeks with me, and this is week 4, and they're banging out 20, and it just looks like their tempo's good, their reps are good, and they could do 20 more, it's time to decrease the incline. It's too easy. Because in the exercise science realm, 5 to 30 is what everybody likes to talk about. If it's 5 reps, that's closer to strength, and if it's 30, it's more hypertrophy. But as long as you're landing somewhere in there, you're going to get very similar results.
Yeah.
Because if you do a body weight push-up and you get 30, and you could just keep going, 40, 50, 60, now it's time to implement something. Change the way you do the push-up. Add a weight to it. Something to make it a little more challenging, so you go back to base. Now 30 becomes 5. Oh, well, I can only do 5 push-ups with a 20-pound weight vest. That's awesome. Next time, try to do 6, try to do 7, and just build them.
Do you feel like bench press helps your push-up? Because I'm still kind of confused on it a little bit.
I think it
I guess that's very broad, but
yeah. No, I think bench press helps with just overall upper body strength. I think it's a good starting point because, when you do a push-up, you're lifting a percentage of your body. So if you're a bigger person, it's going to be much harder for you to get a really good push-up, because you got to go all the way down, all the way up, versus a bench press where I can give you a 45-pound bar and have you work with that and then build yourself up. It's the same thing with pull-ups. Clients are always so astonished because like, man, I can't do a single pull-up, but I can do pull-downs all day. And I tell them, well, yeah, you're pulling a stack, and the stack is 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40, and you incrementally build them, so, yeah.
For lower body, if you had to pick one exercise for lower body, let's just say for women in general, for strength, which one would you pick?
I would say for strength, I'm actually not going to pick the back squat. I know a lot of people love that exercise, but I think it has its usefulness, I like a lunge. I think people get better benefit from a lunge because you can load it very heavy and you can really dial in your form. And it's so versatile that the next time you do lunges, you could do high reps and very, very low weight. And the things you can do, I mean, a back squat or back loaded with a barbell lunge, dumbbells, kettlebells, medicine ball. I mean, it doesn't matter your level. I mean, I have had clients that were in their 60s that could do a kettlebell reverse lunge just fine.
Now, for you personally, what do you do for workouts? Like, yeah, explain kind of like your routine and what you do. Because I've noticed that you and your wife work out together.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, explain what y'all do.
Awesome. So we used to do, push day, pull day, but the issue with that is we started missing workouts. So we started to shift more to a 4-day split. So we're doing upper lower 4-day split. And the reason why we like it, because it gets us in the gym just enough. You train the muscle groups hard on one day and then lighter on the other. So for instance, we have an upper body A. That's our heavy day. So depending on the week, it's a really good split because it works well for life. Let's say you've got a really stressful day coming and you don't want to tax yourself too hard. Well, you can do your lighter day on Monday. So starting out with Monday, upper body B is more hypertrophy, it's lighter weights, it's less sets, it's not as stressful. And then what you do is you rotate. So the next time you train would be on Wednesday, you do a lower body. And if this one, if you're feeling good, you're ready to go, you could do a lower A. So now we're going heavy, we're pushing the CNS harder, which is going to be more taxing. And then you just kind of rotate throughout the week. And that seems to work really well.
So just make sure I'm tracking.
Yeah.
So Monday it's A, heavy, upper body.
Yep.
The next day is
lower body B.
Lower body B, which is...
Because we want to pull that intensity down.
Pull the pot, and that is lighter weight.
Yes.
And then you go back to A.
Yes.
For...
No, you go to B.
Go to B.
Yep.
For heavier day,
yep.
right?
Upper
and the
body.
And the CNS system, central nervous system, right?
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, and we usually do it on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday schedule. So that way, Monday's upper, any kind of upper.
Upper body.
You could do upper body, anything, heavy or light. Wednesday is lower. Friday is upper again, and then Saturday is lower.
So you have a rest day between them.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. I think that's critical. Just if you're not resting, you kind of defeat yourself. Because I mean, the issue is if you're not resting enough, you recover just enough to do it again, but experience no growth. And that's the worst. I mean, who wants to go to the gym and work their butt off and get nothing? So really important to have that day in between where you can rest.
So let's say you're just spent that week.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all change it up, or how do y'all do it?
Yeah. If you're spent, there are groups in the workout. So group 1 is 2 exercises. That's usually the ones where you're trying to focus the hardest. Let's say it's a heavy lower day. So that's my deadlift and some type of lunge. Well, that's your meat and potatoes of the workout. So if you just do those 2 movements and maybe a few accessories, you can leave. That's it. And that's why I like this workout, because it's really modifiable. Doesn't matter how your week's been. If you come in and you're beat up and the schedule says, well, 3 sets of 20 on bench press, just do 1 or 2 sets and just move on. Just make sure you're hitting those muscles with something better than nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting too, because a lot of people don't listen to their body and their internal cues.
I know. For the longest time, I
didn't either. So
yeah, for the longest time, I basically just recovered when the program was ready to go again, instead of when I felt like I was ready to go. And once I learned that, it's okay to work out on Saturday. It's okay to work out on Sunday. It just depends on how you recover. Another thing too, I'm 33 years old. I've discovered that my lower body, my posterior chain, does not recover quickly. So what that means for me, I don't need to scrap the program. I just got to be smarter with it. So now on my lower day on Wednesday, I do less on my RDLs, my hamstring exercises.
Like reps or weight? Or
I
both?
do less reps. I do less reps so I don't feel beat up. So then when I come back to lower body, I'm much fresher. Now my wife, who's a friggin' just unstoppable person, she can just blow through it. I mean, she's good to go. She'll do every set, crush it. But for me and my job, running shed, doing this, doing that, my body does not recover near as well as hers does. So I gotta pull it back a little bit, but we're still doing the exact same workout.
Now, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Are you in maintenance? Are you just trying to get stronger, trying to maintain? Like what's your long-term plan?
Well, my long term plan is to get a little bit stronger. That's my upper and my A days, my alpha days, trying to get stronger. And then B is just to add a little bit of hypertrophy. The issue is like we talked about the food. How much food can you consume and how much protein can you get in? That's the tricky part.
That is very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does your wife have the similar goals or like to explain that a little bit? Is it the same?
My wife, she's more focused on hypertrophy.
Okay.
She's more worried about the aesthetic look. She makes me laugh because she's a school teacher and she's like, I just want to be that presence in the classroom. Like nobody's gonna mess with me, and I'm like, I respect that because everybody has different goals. So
There is something too of being fit because it does give you a little more
yeah,
respect.
shirts fit
than,
better.
Yep.
I mean, you feel stronger. Absolutely.
Now, where did you meet your wife?
I actually met her here in Oxford. We met because she was my neighbor, a building down from me, and where we stayed at the apartments.
And how old were you roughly?
So I was about 28, 29. Yeah. And met her because she worked at Ulta and she worked the late shift. So she would come in and we kind of talked a few times. And I eventually started the conversation and said, hey, I'm really struggling with physics. I'm taking physics at Ole Miss. You wouldn't happen to be good at math. And she's like, actually, I'm a math teacher. And I was like, well, there you go. So she was in honors college to be a math teacher. And lo and behold, she helped me with physics. And it was such a funny interaction, CJ, because I had just gotten out of a relationship and I was just being friendly. And I was like, let's just go to breakfast. That's a very relaxed thing to do. So we go to breakfast and yeah, we hit it off and then went from there. So
Now, was she always in fitness before she met you, or was that something that you guys kind of built over time together? Or
built over time.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, at first she really didn't buy into adaptation and trying to get better. She had taken a few classes here and there, but never really stuck with something long enough to get what she was after. And I think that's for a lot of people.
Man,
Yeah.
I want to go down that hole.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
I could tell. I looked at your face. I was like, this is something that intrigues him.
Yes. Talk about consistency and sticking it out. We had just had a client here just leave after a month when we told them like, hey, we need 6 months with you.
Yeah.
But we always have this 30-day agreement with the client and saying, hey, like if you don't like our product in 30 days, you can leave because we're going to be tied in with you.
Yeah.
And so they left, but it was like, well, I'm just not seeing the results. I'm just like, it's been a month.
Yeah.
And you just had hip replacement and knee surgery.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time.
It takes time. Absolutely. Because like not everything strengthens at the same rate, especially when you're doing compound exercises. There's a lot of tweaks and adjustments you have to make at first. And, my clients hate it, but when I put them on a body weight protocol, they get so mad. And I do that for like a week or two just to make sure their biomechanics look good. But once they're good, we can start loading. And when we start loading, that's when it gets fun.
Yep.
Because that's when you start seeing the change. But as far as consistency goes, I think that's where you've got to pick the right flavor of fitness. It's got to be something you enjoy and you want to get better at. Because if you don't want to get better at it, then it just becomes a chore. I've listened to my clients over the years, and I've become way more lenient about what to program. Like I have one client, for instance, she was doing renegade rows, and her form looked great, but she was just under her breath. I hate these. And I'm like, well, then let's not do them. Like, there's so many other options. So we took them out immediately. So just, finding something you can do long term, because it's gonna take some time. I mean, you're changing your body. You're building muscle tissue. It's not as easy as jumping on a treadmill and just running. I mean, yeah, that's important. Your heart's very important. You'll live longer, feel better. But muscle takes time.
It takes time.
Yeah.
How do you, or what do you say to the audience that basically they're changing multiple programs? They're not seeing satisfied in anything. And I always say, hey, if you're doing that, the common denominator is probably you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do have to force yourself to do things, and you do end up liking it. Now, I'm not saying that all the time, but like we've had, I mean, you've probably had clients where you change a program multiple times and they just don't like anything.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you like this? Why do you see this as such a negative? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. I think people just, they want the microwave effect, but we're in the business of, of the crock pot effect. We want to slow cook, because if you don't slow cook, you're more likely to get injured, and then all training stops, and that's the worst. As someone who's actually partially torn their pec, I tore my left pec when I was in college. I can tell you, sitting out for 6 months was no fun. I lost a ton of muscle. I got so weak, and all I could think was I was just kicking myself. Like, why? Why did you do that? You weren't ready for what you were trying to do. I could barely do 5 push-ups, and here I am doing an 80-pound bench press with dumbbells, and it's like, yeah, this is a bad decision. But going back to what you're saying, I think it's such a different flavor of fitness. It's kind of like exercise versus training. Neither one is wrong. They're just so different. Training is regimented, and it's not monotony, it's mastery. You're trying to master this movement, so then you can earn the right to load it. That's the issue. We don't want to do,
I like that.
We don't want to do what coaches do, where it's like the broomstick method. I'm going to put a broomstick in your hands, you're going to deadlift it. And people get upset, and they're like, well, this weighs nothing. Exactly, because you're not going to get hurt. Do I have to do this forever? No, but you got to do it for now. And once they get the mastery, then you load them, then things start to happen. So
I'm a big fan of progressions.
Yeah.
Out of all the exercises, what is your favorite progressions that you like to see when you see clients start to gain? Like for me, I love pull-ups. Like once they finally be able to do a pull-up, I'm just like, started from rows, then you worked your way up. It's like, whoa, and then they're pulling their body weight and their eyes blow up.
Yeah. I think for me, it would be something to do unilateral, like a Bulgarian split squat. There's just something nice about seeing good form on a Bulgarian split squat. Also, it's cool because when you start training someone and they master the bodyweight squat, they master loaded squat, so bilateral, 2 legs with kettlebell, and then you're able to come beside them and say, hey, do you know how much you were squatting whenever we did goblet squats? And they go, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds. And I'm like, well, you did the 25, and now you're doing it with a Bulgarian. So now you're doing it with 1 leg. So that's way stronger than you ever were. And people don't realize that. And I think that's why training, for me, is such an interesting flavor, because you're recording it. So you can go back in time and say, hey, look, you may be frustrated where you are, but you're not where you used to be. I mean, look at these notes. I mean, they get amazed by that. So, yeah.
What is your progression to get to a split squat? Like, what is you usually go to? Let's say this person is let's say level 1, weak, they can barely squat. How would you walk them to get to that point?
I would probably, what I usually do for someone to get them to a split squat, first of all, they got to make sure they have the range of motion. So their lunges need to look good, need to look smooth, not crashing down their knee. That's important. And then just practicing with maybe just a band to make sure their balance is good there too, from above, just anchored. And then just build their goblet squat up to a certain amount. There's no really hard and fast rule. I mean, people say all the time you're not strong unless you can squat 2 times your body weight. It's insane. If that's going to break your back, you probably shouldn't squat it. You just need to be stronger, you know. But it goes back to what you're saying about progressions. I think you should implement unilateral movements after a certain time of building mastery with bilateral. I think it's kind of silly to start someone unilateral because they haven't even mastered bilateral. They don't even know how to drive with their legs in a regular squat.
Right. Yeah, and I do the same thing too with even planks. I'm just like, we're not doing a side plank until you can do a middle plank.
Yeah.
You can do a middle plank and you pass about a minute and a half, then we can move to side plank.
Planks are tough because at a certain point, you can do a plank for so long, then you have 2 roads to take. You can either load it, you can put a plate on someone's back or a bag or chains, or you can create instability with like shoulder taps or some type of motion like a spider. Like there's so many ways to adjust that, but it also depends on the client. Depends on what they're after.
Yeah.
And I know this is like weird, but one guy that trains at Shed, he's always talking about his back pain, and I tell him, I'm like, hey, if you strengthened your core through planks and then eventually weighted planks, if your back hurts, it might be because your core needs correction or something's going on.
Yeah, it's an indicator.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, huh.
Yeah.
When you're going through like clients' progressions and they're getting pretty discouraged, what are some of the conversations that you have to kind of encourage them? Because I know sometimes it is tough when you're going through progressions and it does take longer and you're not having the microwave effect, which I'm going to steal from you, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
What are some of the things that you do to try to remind them that helps?
Good question. To remind them what helps. Usually I just let them know that we're working in a range and we can always pull that range back. When I have a client that gets discouraged with the number, I try to remind them that the number isn't everything. It's literally just an arbitrary number to challenge you. Remember, I'll even write on the board sometimes, 5 to 30. What are we training for? And if they say, well, this is supposed to be a strength exercise. Okay, great. Can you do 5? Yeah, then just do 5. And they're like, well, I did 5 last week. I said, that's okay. Let's do a mastery week, and we can try to go up next time.
Yeah. And
just remind them that this is a journey. This isn't a one snapshot image of what you're always going to be at. Like if the weight's not going up, something's wrong.
Right.
You're maybe not resting enough, or your progressions are too aggressive. But what I find, especially with general public, is doing less is probably smart. Because remember, you're not training a world-class athlete, most likely. You're training a mom. You're training a dad. You're training someone who still has responsibilities after they leave you. So beating them to death with rep after rep after rep. I hate the guy. I'm not gonna tell you his name, but he's got a tattoo that says one more. Like I can't stand that. Like no. Like you push the set, you push it hard, and then you stop, and then you rest, and you repeat. So.
Yeah, I think it's crazy too. Is there's a quote. Maybe you can decipher it for me too. That it was, "No pain, no gain."
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
I hate that quote.
Yeah, I don't love that one.
Just because of the context and intentionality behind it. It's just like most of the time these people are hurting because they do need to stop what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not to push through it.
That's right.
And there is points in time where you do have to poke the bear a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you got to get strong somehow. Like it's going to be painful if you're really hurting anyway.
Yeah.
It's hurting sitting on the couch. It's going to be hurting deadlifting. Either one, pick your hurt.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's talk about losing weight.
Okay.
What are some of the misconceptions about losing weight?
Well, I'll avoid spot reduction because that's what everybody talks about. I think one of the misconceptions I hear a lot is I'll just eat less, and then I'll eat less, and then I'll eat less and less and less. And the problem with that is your body is smarter than you think it is, and it just wants to survive. So if you start out at a low calorie deficit, like 250 below your maintenance, that's fine. But then we just get so angry, and we're like, this is not happening fast enough. I'm going to take it to 500. Okay, you lose a little weight. It's awesome. But then something happens where you're not losing weight anymore. Your body has figured it out, and it's like, well, I'm going to slow down your metabolism. Crazy, crazy slow. So now we're going to maintain. We're going to survive this. So then you go, aha, I'll go in another deficit. You go to another deficit. But then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of problems because now you're tired all the time. You don't have any strength. You can't really try hard. And you're wondering what's wrong. And it's like, well, this is a problem. It's kind of like Dr. Mike Israetel said. This is so funny. He said, it's like getting to the mall in a car or on a rocket. One's going to get you there faster, but you may not survive or enjoy the trip because it's going to be scary. I don't know how fast a rocket goes. Don't quote me.
But rockets crash a lot.
Rockets crash a lot, and that's why it's called a crash diet. But yeah, but yeah. So I just try to encourage clients, like, remember, this is a journey. This is something that can take you 8 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. It doesn't matter as long as you're stacking those wins and you're just being consistent. And that's the big thing.
Talk about a little about the
spot reduction.
Yes. We haven't talked. I mean, obviously a lot of people talk about it, but we haven't talked to you on this podcast. I'm glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about that because I've been so overwhelmed with hearing it over and over from other podcasts, but we haven't touched it.
Yeah, I know. Well, so we know that muscle building is very specific. If you want to build your biceps, you work your biceps. Well, I think Instagram and all these things tell us, especially the ladies, they say, hey, you want this to be gone? Do this. If you want this to be gone, do this. And it's like, no. If you want this to be gone, learn your biology. Learn where you lose weight, how quickly you lose weight. Because everybody has a genetic script where you're going to lose weight first. A good example is my wife. She when she started training with me, she started losing weight, and she was walking and doing a bunch of other stuff, staying super active. She started losing weight in her hands. Like, her fingers started to look more lean. Then it became her forearms, and then her neck, and then her décolletage area. And it's like, that's what went first before it ever got to the belly, because our belly fat protects us. That's our basically our last stand, to protect our organs. So especially guys are like, why am I doing all this hard work but I still have this? Because you can't outwork the diet. And also, you can get on YouTube and have a really entertaining afternoon watching people try to burn what they eat. It's really hard. I mean, you can go as hard as you want.
Right.
You work out for 4 hours and you don't burn what you ate.
Yeah. That's such a good point too. Is, from my experience, usually their belly is the last to go.
Yeah.
It's usually their face, their forearms, their fingers. Like, they're starting to notice even their calves. It's like,
yep.
Your body wants to have the fat in your mid range because that's where it could hold heat.
Yep.
Protect you. Protect you.
Protect you. I know that's why a lot of people, they ooh and ah at DK Metcalf's shredded abs, and it's like, that's great. But I had a good laugh in class because our professor was like, awesome. Hope there's no famine, because if there's no food, what's his body going to take?
He'll be the first to die.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, he's not going to be super healthy because he's going to get sick very easily. But if you got a little extra fat, your body will take that. I had a talk with one of my clients, and she's like, man, I just don't get it. I'm doing all this, and that. And I said, well, think about it like this, right? You're working hard in the gym. You're pushing yourself hard. But what are you doing the other 24 hours of the day? Where do you spend your time? What are you trying to accomplish throughout your day? Is your mindset to move? Because if you don't have a move mindset, then you'll find reasons to sit down. Everybody will. If you can have the most active job in the world, but if someone puts a chair in that room, you're going to be tempted to sit in it. So
that is so true. I always tell clients, don't expect to fix 24 hours of dysfunction with 1 hour a day.
That's right. And that's why, a lot of coaches swear by a step goal, which I think step goals are great. But I also think, again, they can be aggressive for some people. I have some people that I train that they look at 10,000 steps a day like it's just impossible, and they just give up. They get discouraged. They're like, hey, I barely clock 2,000. Well, okay. Well, maybe go up super incrementally, slowly, and just build yourself.
Now, so let's go back to when you first landed a job.
Yeah.
That was at Rebel Body, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about that experience. Talk about what you learned and what you took away, and then we'll kind of just jump down the train and then go to Shed and all that.
Yeah. So, working at Rebel Body was a really cool opportunity because that was a public gym. I was able to do one-on-ones with people and kind of just find my niche, find where I fit. Had great opportunities just working with different age groups. I had a lot of clients that were older who just wanted to build some muscle. Unfortunately, they started pretty late, so that was difficult at first. But I think when it started to click for them, they realized that, hey, I can build strength at 60. I can build strength at 70. It's no problem. I just have to be smart with how I do it. Case in point, this is funny. I had a lady watching someone do back squats one day, and they were just getting after it. And she's like, I will never be able to do that. And I said, well, why not? She's like, it's just not in me. So what I did for her, CJ, I had her sit backwards on the bench press. And I picked the barbell up and put it on her back. And I said, just stand up. Just stand up. And she would do that with the barbell until it got so easy she could do 15 reps. And she's like, keep going. I'm like, keep going. Looks great. And eventually, she was able to do back squats. But her age, we had to start in a place that was much different than I would start with someone my age or a little bit younger or a little bit older, you know. But you just got to play with where people are at. And that's something that Rebel Body allowed me to do, was work with such an interesting variety. You know, I had kids to train who didn't know how to do a proper squat. I had older people who, you know, fantasize about what it'd be like to be strong. And I'm like, hey, you can be strong. You know, the deadlift is a good example. People are scared of the deadlift, but I think the deadlift is great if you do it smartly, because in your daily life, you're probably going to be in the deadlift position at some point. You may not realize it, but you're gonna be there. So if she can be there and practice it and be strong, I think that's important, you know?
Yeah, it is so interesting sometimes how it's just like, hey, if you want to get better at writing a book, you got to start writing.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes it's just repetitions. Until you get more advanced, and then it's, you know, then you can do 80% of your one rep max, and you can get all that into that stuff. But it's very rare that you have to get to that point just for general health reasons.
Yeah.
All right. So you went from Rebel Body. You learned a lot from that. Now, what attracted you to go to Shed Fitness? Like, why go there?
Yeah, I think it was just at that point in my life, I was looking for a change. You know, I'd been at Rebel Body for about 2 years, and I was interested to see what Shed had that was a different flavor, and I enjoyed it. The energy was good, the people were really nice, and I felt that for lack of a better term, like warrior spirit when I walked in. The music was loud, people were really getting after it, and I think that was intriguing because it was just a different environment to be around. And when I talked to, you know, the guys there, and they said, hey, you know, we don't have any male trainers, we have just one, be interested if maybe want to do some classes. And at the time, I was interviewing with another gym that was also hit, but I'm not going to say the name. Some things fell through, but luckily that was the best thing that could have happened for me. It was a blessing that didn't happen, because their particular style of fitness didn't really make much sense. They didn't have any kind of structure. They just kind of did whatever felt good or felt right. And for me, that went against everything I was taught. And I was like, okay, well, at least this other gym has structure. So when I went into the other gym, Shed, started taking some classes, started meeting people, and found out that there were some really elite people, very, very fit, very, very strong. And that's because when it came time to do the exercise, they didn't look at a weight and say, okay, what can I do and just get through it? What can I do to push myself? And even if I don't complete the reps or I don't whatever, I'm still getting a good challenge. I think that was important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say the difference between like Shed Fitness is from CrossFit? Because a lot of people have those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question. They're eerily similar. I've talked to the owner of Shed and kind of went back and forth with this, but Shed is CrossFit, but it's a more manageable approach. You know, we have the dumbbells, we have the kettlebells, we have all the toys and bells and whistles. We don't have any barbells. So we kind of take away that modality, and that allows us a little bit more freedom. We still do snatches and weighted burpees and all the things that CrossFit can do, but we have a little bit more relaxed environment. We're not doing workouts to make you sick or try to make you
throw up
or really, really hurt. We just want to challenge you so that way you can get a little stimulus and then come back again, and a little stimulus and come back again. I think the problem with CrossFit, and this is something that I haven't personally experienced, but I have friends that have experienced it. It's different where you show up to a class and you're taught the exercise, and then you're asked to do it 50 times, and you're like, well, I just learned this thing you call a snatch. And they're like, yeah, give me 50 reps with the bar or whatever he gives you. And it's like, man, talk about overload, talk about burning, but it's just a different. I know, some CrossFit instructors will say, well, it's universally programmable. It is. You can do less reps, but your form is really important too. And that's something that kind of gets overlooked.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more too. Just some of the CrossFit gyms I was a part of too, that was one of the big things. And rhabdo was really bad.
Oh, wow. I've never had rhabdo.
Yeah, we had two or three people. I've had 2-3 people I worked at 2 different CrossFit gyms total that got it. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Because the on-ramp protocol is very loose.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll say, oh, I lift all the time, I do this. And like partially is their fault too, because they're lying to you and they're not being honest with you.
Yeah.
But some of it is also on the on-ramp process of making sure like, hey, like, did you even test them before they did that?
Right.
Like,
right.
Maybe give them a couple days to see how sore they are.
Yeah. Let them ease into it.
Yeah. I did not know that. So I didn't know you guys didn't have barbells. That makes it a lot safer, I would assume.
Yeah. It kind of takes away that risk. You don't want somebody in the back doing a heavy back squat with no assistance, and you're trying to look around the room, make sure everybody else is being safe. It just kind of cuts that out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's why I like Shed so much, because I'm blessed to be able to be a part of that group, that organization, where they're open to adjustments. They're open to change. They're open to making it better. And I think a lot of gyms that I've interviewed at are just like, no, we're going to do it this way, and it's going to be this way because it's always been this way. And when I have a question, I'm like, well, why are we doing biceps and triceps when we did them yesterday? Because the burn, bro. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That goes against science. Like, I'm sore, I'm injured, I'm more likely to get more sore, more injured. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Like, I almost tore a bicep tendon working out at this gym because they just wanted so much from me. They're like, hey, we're going to do a finisher, bicep curls. I'm like, okay, how many? We're going to do partner. Well, you do 30, I'll do 30. You do 20, I'll do 20. It's like, yeah, no. And when I kind of pushed back a little bit, I was like, I think I'm going to, no, you have to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, you got to be able to modify because like you said, we're working with regular people, with regular things, and we got to be more adjustable, with what we're doing,
Yeah.
to maintain consistency.
Absolutely.
Where
do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Where do you want to be?
Well, I would say 5 years from now, I want to have a better understanding of my role at Shed. Stepping into this new position has been a lot of trial by fire for me. I've had to put on multiple hats,
Yeah.
And I think just understanding Shed as a whole, and also being able to travel a little bit more. I know there's some sheds in like Nashville and the Gulch and things like that I need to go visit, kind of see how they do business. Shed Germantown's a good example. We have great relationship there. I want to go to their gym and kind of see what Todd is up to, and and just kind of understand their particular way, because it's all the same structure, just slightly different, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Now, do you know where Shed started?
I think it started maybe in Oxford, because Amzie started it in Oxford because he played for Ole Miss. I think he was a football player, and then he took it to Nashville. He moved it to Nashville. And
so how many Shed, do you know how many, is it nationwide?
No, it's not nationwide yet. I think we've got 4 or 5 gyms.
Okay, got it. And it's all relatively pretty close to here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember somebody saying that. They were just like, I'm pretty sure somebody from Ole Miss started it, and that makes sense.
Yep.
That's how I was trying to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
What are one of what is one of the things that you're most passionate about fitness? Like, what drove you to continue to do it? Because a lot of people come to fitness, and they don't last long.
Yeah. What drove me to fitness? I would say probably just, growing up, my background of just always wanting to exercise, just to feel better, move better, and just giving that to other people. I think if I can help them move better, then, looking good comes with it. I think that's just a byproduct of staying consistent, but just the feeling I get when someone tells me like, hey, I'll never be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, you can, you just got to modify it.
Right.
Maybe a trap bar deadlift is what you can do, and you can't do a barbell deadlift. That's fine. You're still using the same muscles, to some degree. So.
Obviously, you know this. Mississippi is like second or third most obese state.
Yeah.
How do we fix it? In your opinion, like what do you think some of the processes that we should be doing to help that process? Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Or maybe too, as you're thinking, why Mississippi? Why are we? It's always, I'm talking to a lot of people who are really passionate about this, and it's really interesting of what they're coming up with and what they're trying to do, but yet we're still in the same spot.
Yeah, I think one issue is if you don't play a major sport, then you don't really feel a reason to exercise. I know a lot of people I've talked to at Shed, much older guys, they're in their 40s and 50s. They're not old. They're still very much alive. But it's like, hey, I used to be able to do this. I used to be able to squat and run and jump. But I was like, you can still do those things. You just got to modify them. And I think growing up in Mississippi, it's like your ticket is, if you're not an athlete, then you better be pretty smart, or that's pretty much it. It's just the area, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot of people are saying that, and just get your thoughts on it, they think it's education. Like, they just don't know. Mm-hmm. And then there was another argument, well, it's like, no, they do know, they're just not willing. And where do you fall on that? Or do you think it's a little mixture of both?
I think people know exercise is important. They just don't know how much the importance is until they get older.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, and then I don't want to say it's too late, but it's just much harder to start when you're much older. And it starts with your parents, too. I think that's a big one. Yeah.
I want to go down this hole. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because, I remember, being a little kid, my mom would take me for walks, and I would get mad at her and be like, it's hot, and I'm tired. Why are we doing this? But she was trying to teach me something. She's trying to teach me that, you might not be able to do much in the gym, but you can walk. You can run, you can do some push-ups, you can do some squats, it's not going to hurt you. But seeing your parents do that is so motivating, And then that's why I think, too, this is something that I've noticed in Oxford, is these kids are just little professional athletes. They're so busy. Oh, my goodness. They've got summer leagues, they've got special coaches. Like, they don't have a moment to breathe. And
they don't have off-season.
Yeah, they don't have an off-season. And just kind of be a kid. That's a double-edged sword, because you're creating this awesome athlete, but do they want to be an awesome athlete? Maybe they just want to be healthy. Maybe people aren't training for anything. They just want to be fit, healthy, and strong. Yeah,
and it's very interesting too, as just I got the opportunity to work with a lot of kids in the past, and how much, for instance, I don't know if you've ever worked with kids, but they'll just hand off their kid and be like, hey, fix my kid.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah,
an hour. I only got an hour a day with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes 30, 45 minutes, depending on what sessions they're doing.
Exactly.
And they're going to be with you mostly.
Yep.
Or at school. Have you had to work with kids or in the past or anything like?
Absolutely.
How did you navigate that? Because I had one client walk out on me one time because they came in here. There's like, my son needs to do this and this and that and this, and then he's over here sitting. He's over 300 pounds. He ain't 5'10". And his son looked like he doesn't even want to be here.
Yeah.
And I had his son who was sitting here. I was like, hey, man, you mind going out to the gym and grabbing some water real quick. I'll come get you. And I just had like a down to earth talk with his dad because I knew if I didn't, it's gonna be miserable.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be there, and his dad's gonna get mad at me for him not wanting to be there, and I don't want to get stuck in between them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's not a place you want to be. Yeah. I mean, just working with kids, it's tough because, like you said, you only have their attention for so long. So you just try to instill the importance of just movement. If you just get them moving and being active, I'm guilty of this, growing up playing video games. You can sit for a really long time playing video games and never move.
Yep.
And if that becomes your behavior, that kind of carries over, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. But that's something where your parents can step in and say, hey, healthy boundaries. Let's establish some healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
You can play the game, but only from 12 to 1 or 12 to 2. Then it has to go off, and we have to do something different.
Right.
And just encouraging you to move and to be active is really a big thing.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up the word boundaries. I'm fascinated with boundaries.
Yeah.
Why people set them, why they don't set them. What do you think people are struggling with, specifically in just trying to get healthy, just boundary related, that you've noticed with your clients?
In relation to?
That's a good question.
Like exercise or?
No, more towards making time for themselves. Oh, yeah, exercise.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that.
Well, I would say boundaries for themselves is, I got a good example. So I have a client that she just started training one-on-ones with me. And the reason why she did it, because she's got kids at home. She's all about them, all about her husband. Well, her husband's like, I want it to be about her and just her, which has been great. So I've been able to help train her, get her stronger, help her move better, and just talk to her a little bit. It's kind of funny being a trainer because we have a really sweet spot of I'm strengthening you, but I'm also instilling in you some things. We're also, unqualified therapists. We listen to their day.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, I'm not going to take away because that's a licensed thing. Like I'm not a therapist.
We call it coach therapy.
Yeah. Armchair therapist. So, but we have to do that, and just being able to remind them that we're introducing stress, but you also got to have downtime for you. You got to be able to decompress because, again, you can have a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're too stressed out, you're too maxed out, and then I'm asking you to do heavy deadlifts. Well, if you don't communicate to me as a trainer, hey, Mason, I've had a horrific morning. Everything's going wrong. My CNS is shot already, and I'm asking you to perform. But it's your job, and also my job, to talk about that first. When you're doing your warm-up and you're going through your stretches, your mobility drills, be like, hey, what's your stress looking like? How's everything looking? How's everything hydration-wise? Well, have you eaten today? That's a big one. Have you eaten today? And so people say, no, I haven't eaten. Okay, well, it's going to be tough to strength train. So just reminding them that you're important. You gotta take care of your body. This is it. As far as I know, there are no body transplants where you can just put all your consciousness into another thing. Like, this is the body you're given, so you gotta take care of it.
How would you respond? I had somebody say this to me the other day. How would you respond to this person who's specifically in pain, needs exercise, and he's relatively pretty bad health?
Yeah.
He told me that exercise is a luxury, not a necessity.
Oh, wow.
I was blown away.
Yeah. I would wonder what his daily job is. Like, what does he do?
He's retired.
Oh, he's retired. Okay. Yeah, I think he's got a really weird perception of what exercise is and what it can do for him. And if he's in pain, he needs to ask the question of why. Why is he in pain? What hurts, and what can we do to try to get out of that? Or not fix him per se, but maybe strengthen that.
Yep.
That's what I would say. I think, we're kind of biased because we're in this
That's why I asked
this
you
career
too.
path.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? Why is exercise important? Why is oxygen important? Like, it's very important. It's very important.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh,
if you go back thousands of years ago, if you didn't move, you got eaten. It's very simple.
Yep.
I mean, that's it.
Yep.
Someone bigger and stronger than you took your cave.
Yep.
That's what happened.
Yep.
So it's funny. I heard a coach say, now we've, as a society, have gotten so lazy, we have to create a building where we lift artificial weights because we don't lift real weights no more. But we're training the muscles, so that's important.
Right.
You know, I have my clients do a suitcase carry because I think it's a great exercise for core and low back and things like that. And they always say, well, this kettlebell's heavy. And I'm like, yes, it's heavy, but it's heavier than your suitcase. How heavy is your suitcase? And they go, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds. And I'm like, well, that's a 40-pound kettlebell. So you think you can carry your suitcase now? And they go, yeah, I think so. And
that is good.
Yeah, just everyday life stuff. Just reminding them that we're not doing this to make our head spin. We're doing this to make you so strong, fit, and move not even making words now. Strong, healthy, that anything in your house you need to maneuver or lift, you can do it.
Yep.
You don't need assistance, because the scariest thing you can hear in the world, and this is, something that I've dealt with some clients, assisted living. You do not want to hear someone say, hey, you cannot live by yourself. You don't have the strength. You've fallen so many times.
Yep. Now
you've got to go to a home. You want to avoid that? Strength train. You want to avoid that? Take care of your body. That simple.
Health is wealth.
Yeah, health is wealth,
I want to be a devil advocate here. You ready?
Okay.
Squats are bad for you.
I mean,
How do you respond to that?
Yeah, again.
Like, don't go on the toilet then, dude.
Yeah. Don't bend anywhere. I don't know. That's a tough one. I would say bad how. Do they hurt when you do them, or do you just not like them? Because a lot of people, they have a misconception between muscle pain and joint, or what's going on with prior injuries and things,
They'll say, oh, they're just bad for your knees.
I would have to say that's out of context. Like, I'd have to see how you squat.
It might be bad for your knees because of the way you're squatting.
Yeah, it could be. You could be about to rupture something. We don't even know.
That's right.
But, yeah.
I want to give you another one I heard the other day.
Okay.
Deadlifts are bad for your back.
Okay, this one I have a soft spot for because I injured my back deadlifting because I was dumb, and it took me a very long time to pull 135 without pain. And the reason why is because I didn't know how to brace. I didn't understand what bracing was.
I'm glad you bring this up. Bracing's important.
I didn't know how to push out, take that big breath, and create that structural soundness.
Explain what bracing is, so that because there's gonna be people only listening to this.
Yeah.
So how could you explain this as an analogy, or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
How could we explain that so that way they understand what bracing? Because it is really important.
Yeah. Well, bracing is basically filling your body with air so your diaphragm fills up. So you create that structuralness where a good example is the soda can example, where if there's pressure, the soda can is strong. If you put your foot on it, it's not going to go anywhere. But once you release that pressure, it just collapses because you just don't have any rigidness to yourself. And think about it. Every time you pick up a barbell, you put it on your back or you're pulling from the floor, you've got to brace, because if you don't brace, the weakest link in the chain is what's going to get injured. And what's the weakest link? Your low back. And that's why people say deadlifting's bad for your back, because you're not doing it right. And I'm guilty of this. You've got too much of an ego to take your plates off and be humbled a little bit. But remember, you're in competition with yourself. It's funny going to the gym because I have, sometimes I'll think and I'll go, oh, everyone's looking at me. No one's thinking about you. They're worried about their set and what they're doing and what they've got planned to eat that night. They are not thinking not one iota about you. That is a myth. Like, everybody hears the thoughts in their head. It's like, he's looking and she's looking. No, they're not.
And I think that's what scares people from coming into the gym.
Mm-hmm.
They think as soon as they walk in,
Judgment.
Everybody's looking and judging them.
Yep.
And they're just not.
No.
They're too worried about themselves. They might have an instant think of like, oh, that's a new person. But that's all they think about.
Yeah.
And they go back into what they have to worry about.
Yeah. Well, we go to the gym to get better. And if you're there to get better, then, you really shouldn't be worried about what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
It's
It's like, where's your priorities at?
Now, I will say this. My wife is really social, and she can talk to anybody. So she makes a lot of friends at the gym and gets to know a lot of people. I think that's great because she gets a different perspective of what other people are doing as far as training and dieting and cardio. Some ladies who look amazing, they do sprints before they ever touch a weight, or they go for a long run after the weights. I'm fine with both of those. Try it and see what you like, you know. So that's good, you know, to be able to just not be so closed in, but also, you know, being around people who are welcoming. That's another big thing.
Yeah, talk about some of that too. Like, because me and you worked at multiple gyms, and we've seen pros and cons to each of them, and we've learned a lot from each of them. What makes a good gym for a client to feel safe to come in there and want to work out?
Well, I mainly do one-on-ones that are private, but when I did do training in a public gym, I think it's just, you know, having a plan in action already set up. For instance, you know, I work there, but I've got the bench taken, I've got the squat rack taken, and I've got the shoulder press machine taken. All three of those are taken by me, so I can assure them, hey, nobody's going to mess with you. This is our safe spots. And just kind of give them a little bit more comfort. Because remember, they're stepping into your world, and they're trying to learn what you know. I mean, that's what they're trusting you. So you need to honor that trust by going above and beyond and saying, hey, I know there's a lot of people in here, but don't focus on them. Focus on me. Focus on your form, your breathing, and we're just going to work in this rotation. You're going to go squats, shoulder press, lunge. We're just going to go in a circle. And just getting them comfortable.
Yep.
You know.
I think too is, like you said, that having a plan and letting them know that you're going to execute it.
Yeah.
Is so comforting. It's so underrated, but man, it is very comforting. Now, for a group setting, how do you build a strong community? Because you're in Shed, and I always hear great things about your guys' community.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you're like, hey, you always tell the staff, hey, make sure we do this. Yeah. Do this. Please do this.
Yes. Well, the biggest thing is just making everybody in the room feel seen and making them understand, or not making them, helping them understand that we're on this journey with them. You know, we want them to improve. We want them to get better. And, you know, it's not our job to just stand over top of them and say, hey, your form's bad. We don't do that. We encourage them every step of the way. Hey, your form looks good, but let's adjust this. And just having that kind of tone with them is really helpful.
Yeah.
You know, and just the more they see you, the more they trust you, the more they know you. And that's really the formula, just helping people to be seen. You know, I tell my trainers all the time the importance of hearing a name. You know,
we just talked about that too.
If you don't know someone, get to know them.
Right.
You know, and once you get to know them, you might learn so much about them. But if you're just closed off, be like, well, I don't want to talk to this person. Well, you should, you know, because everything can lead to the next, which leads to the next. You know, I had a client, had a guy in class who was really struggling with shoulder presses. I mean, he was wincing every time he did a shoulder press. And I just turned my mic off and came up to him. I said, everything cool? Are you good? He's like, man, I injured my labrum. I've got some issues with it. I just don't think this is good. And I used the word contraindication. So this might be a contraindication. He's like, what does that mean? It's an exercise you shouldn't be doing. So when I got him away from that environment and I gave him some band exercises, you know, pull aparts, very gentle movements, the pain he was experiencing immediately subsided. But being a good coach, especially in a room that big of maybe 6, 12 people, you got to be vigilant and pay attention to that stuff. You know, you got to see it. And I go, okay, would you want to be embarrassed? You know, would you want someone on the microphone to go, Mason, your form's bad, let's fix it. And someone runs up to you and then they try. No. You'd want someone to turn their mic off, come talk to you like a person, like I do my one-on-ones, be like, hey, man, maybe this isn't the best exercise for this. Let's try this. And he was appreciative. He talked to me after class about it.
Yeah.
But I never would have opened that door with him if I would have just had the courage to say, hey, I'm going to go correct him, but I'm going to do it in a very understanding way. Because I don't know his background. Maybe he had a trainer once who was really, really mean, and I don't want to add to that narrative. So
I want to close a little bit on last couple questions.
Yeah.
How you're married,
Yep.
so you have experience in that. How do you encourage somebody who has a spouse that is not supportive for them to get healthy?
Ooh.
Because that's a tough one I've had to navigate a little bit.
Yeah.
Or you can also think of the opposite, where the spouse wants them to, but they don't want to.
Well, oof, that's tough. So one spouse wants to get healthy and one doesn't. So in that kind of situation, I look at it kind of like, this might sound weird, but it's kind of like church. You go to church, you get the experience, you feel the difference, you see the difference. People start to notice things about you. That's kind of how spouses are. At first, they're going to be kind of closed off. Like, oh, you go to the gym all the time. But once you start getting real actionable results and you create that ripple effect where suddenly I'm exercising, 3 days a week consistently, and now just add one thing. I'm drinking more water. Hey, your skin looks better. I noticed that. Why is that? Well, I've been drinking more water. I've been taking care of myself. They kind of get that feeling. They're like, oh, okay, well, now I want to improve too. So maybe I should start doing some stuff. And not everybody's willing to do what the other person's doing. Case in point, I had one lady, she's like, my husband's been an athlete his whole life and he's sick of weights. I'm like, okay, great. Does he have a tree in his yard? She's like, yeah. Tell him to hang a TRX. Let's do some TRX stuff. Let's do some body weight. Because he can get good results too, just like you. But he's going to do it a very different way. And that's fine. That's fine. Like I keep saying, there's so many flavors of fitness.
Yeah.
And it all works just like what you're willing to do consistently.
Yeah. I can't stress enough too. That's the same boat I go down to. It's like, just because they don't want to, or if you're trying to, and you
can't make them.
Exactly, you can't.
Can't make them.
And if you go down that route, it is miserable for the both of y'all because you can't control another person.
Yeah, and I've never had good luck having a husband and a wife work out together.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, not in a client setting. Me and my wife can work out just fine because we've developed a great partnership where we're doing the exact same program, but we're using different weights because it just saves time. Also, it allows her to know I'm there if she needs me. I think we started out not enjoying the gym at all, but we've now hit a really good spot where we love it.
Yeah.
Where I can know, hey, I'm on this rack doing my bench press. My wife's on her rack doing her bench press. And we kind of know what kind of week we've had. A good example is last week, having a rough time. And I told my wife, I texted her, and I said, hey, I'm going to do lighter weights today. I'm just not feeling it. So she was like, okay, well, I'm going to go heavy if that's fine. I'm like, sure. So we can do opposites, but same structure. So we're right next to each other. She's got a rack. I got a rack. She's pushing heavy weights, and I see her struggling. But me being able to be doing the same exercise, I can kind of jump in and give her real-time advice. I'm like, hey, your elbows look a little rough. You're flaring a little harder.
Yeah.
Things like that. But just feel like I'm going off on a tangent.
No, this is good. I'll keep please go on.
Well, I love the dynamic we have.
You guys have a great dynamic.
Yeah, it's good.
What I've seen, so
and it flows really well. Mm-hmm. At first, I wasn't sure. I was like, because we used to do completely opposite things. I used to do more bodybuilder style stuff, and that just beat me up. Just beat me to death. A chest day, I might take 6 whole days to recover from chest day and have to try to repeat, and then I lose some things, and I just feel awful after that. So now we've reached that point where we're doing the same thing, but it's very adjustable. She's like, well, I'm kind of sore in my legs. I don't think 3 sets of 20 is going to work. I'm like, okay, well, 3 sets of 10 then, or 3 sets of 8, because you're still stimulating the muscle, and we're both in the same vicinity, so we're close enough to each other.
Right.
We are married, we're close, but we're not on top of each other. And that's where we had an issue, because we used to use the exact same rack, because we were like, well, we'll just save space for everybody. Doesn't really work. Doesn't really work.
Yeah. And what's crazy or just fascinating to me is the boundaries that you guys have with each other.
Yeah.
Like it's okay not to lift heavy because she's not lifting heavy, or vice versa.
She can do anything she wants.
Right, and to let that not distract you from the main goal, and that's to be healthy and strong, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I'm lucky that my wife picked up fitness so fast. When we started dating, she was kind of like, "Oh, Mason's this fit dude. Like, he must go for runs." I don't go for runs. I need to,
right?
But I wasn't this Rambo style guy that she thought I was. I was like, sometimes I just skip the gym completely. I'm beat up. I am beat.
Yep.
And she respects that. So we have a great dynamic there because she knows my job. She knows what I do at Shed. She knows I put everything I can into each class because I know there may be somebody in that room that's new, who's never met me, and this is their only experience in this kind of environment. So I want it to be good.
Right.
That's what I try to tell my trainers. Like, it's kind of funny. I'll encourage them and I'll try to make them laugh. And I'm like, hey, I want to hear Beyonce. I don't want to hear Beyonce's cousin. I want your best. I want you to really give it your all.
Right.
Because you only got 1 or 2 classes a day, so really bring it.
Yeah.
Because if you really bring it, you might inspire somebody. And they're like, well, I can't really do it today, but so-and-so's teaching, and I love her, so I'm going to go.
That's right.
And then once they get there, and as well as with your clients most likely, once you're in it to win it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get in it first, because if you don't move your body and get there, that's the hardest part.
Yep. Man, and I love the part when you said that guy was struggling with his shoulder, and you went to him and you turned your mic off.
Yes, you got to. You
Gosh, that's a clutch play.
You can't embarrass anybody. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to put anybody on the spot. You don't want to be put on the spot.
No.
Yeah.
No one likes to be corrected in front of public.
No one likes it.
And I can't stress that enough with coaches. I'm just like, get close enough to them. And I use this same analogy too, because I get pretty frustrated just even at restaurants, because just my coaching in me is at restaurants. Like when somebody's ordering food from the waiter or the waitress, they need to come to you.
Yeah.
They don't need to shout over the table, right? They need to come to you.
Yeah.
Work around the table and get close to people. They don't want to shout. Yeah. They might have questions. That's right. You might be able to upcharge them. Like you don't know that because you broadcasted all their information out there.
That is true.
And I think that the same way as coaching too is you come up to the people that need to be corrected and you talk to them, so that way it's between y'all two.
Yeah. And
whether group or one-on-one.
Exactly. And one-on-ones are a little trickier because the music is lower, so there is a lot more venting. But again, you're in such an interesting position because you're a safe person that they trust and they're willing to share with you. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I tell them, hey, your rest period just started. 2 minutes. What do you got? And they'll start talking. Be like, well, this is going on, this is going on. And I politely start to steer them back to the workout. It's like, okay, well, this has been a great story. Let's go ahead and knock out this set. And on the next rest, you can explain.
That's good.
Yeah, that way
like
it gives them something to think about, but also we're still getting work in.
Right.
Because we're not getting work in.
Because then they leave frustrated.
Yeah.
Because like, man, I got talking, and then either way they're going to be frustrated at you.
Yep.
So why not get frustrated for doing something at work?
Or if it's something that even better is steady state, rowing or walking, you talk to me then. That's fine.
Right.
We got 10 minutes to walk or whatever. So yeah, just working with people, man. That's like the biggest thing is like, don't ever become this robot where it's like, you must do X. No, like there's so many modifiable variables,
Yeah.
So.
And what's crazy too is as coaches, we get the privilege when somebody's working on their health, it's more intimate than people think it is.
Yeah.
And you get to know their frustrations, anger, happiness, joyful. You get to see all of it.
Yep.
And so we get really close to our clients because you see them try and fail and succeed.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
I know the gym is an interesting place because you're chasing failure in a way because you're trying to do something that's so difficult that your body just can't. And you can take that so many different ways. People say, train to failure every set. It's like, again, calm down. Like, you're training people who have jobs and need to do things. You just want to instill to them the importance of the principles of training. paying attention to what you're doing, taking time to really think about it. Like each rep needs to be smooth, look good, feel good. If it hurts, probably something's wrong.
That's right.
Pay attention to that kind of stuff. And they're going to take what you teach them, they're going to hopefully teach someone else. Or even better, they're going to apply it to their life. Like, hey, this is the hardest day I've ever done. But you know what's harder? Walking lunges with CJ. Those are awful. So they might literally create that association. So planks are a good one. People are like, why do we do planks? Because it's core stability, it's an isometric, but it's going to help. It's going to help you strengthen, your abdominals so your back doesn't hurt. We're starting there. We're not going to stay there. We're going to start there. And that's something, Yeah, I'm talking about exercise again.
No, it always goes back to it.
I know, man. It's like just a constant loop.
All right, Mason. I know we got to hit it, but it was great talking to you.
Yeah,
and
I
we got to do
enjoyed
this again, but we got in some of the meat, but time flies every time you're talking. So appreciate you being on. And I'm so glad that we have you in Oxford so that way we continue to fight the battle of, trying to get Mississippi healthy.
Yeah, man. Love it. I love what you're doing. I think it's great. Like I said, there's different flavors of fitness. We're on opposite ends, which is kind of funny. When I first met you, I was like, man, this dude's fit. He's going to be some serious competition. And then you were like, hey, if we have people that want HIIT classes, I'll send them to you. And it's like, awesome.
Yep.
Well, if we have people that want one-on-ones, I'll send them to you.
Yep.
So that's,
I'm just such an advocate of just putting people in their niches and just leave them. Like, I'm not going to be all. I'm not a group fitness guy.
Yeah.
That's not me. So
Nothing wrong with that.
I send them off.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's so good when you have the resources to do that. When you do have clients reach out to you that is not your ideal client, to give them what they need, not what they want.
That's right.
And I can't stress that enough. It's like we had a client come in. It's like, y'all don't do group. It's like, I'm really trying to build a community. We're not the place. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to build a one-on-one relationship and maybe a few people and members here, but probably not the place. If you want to go there, go to Shed Fitness. That's where you can grow in community.
Absolutely.
It's different vibes for different people.
Yeah, and every shed is different, and I find that interesting, because Oxford is a different style of what Nashville's doing or what Germantown is doing, but we all have the same structure, and I go back to that. Structure to me is so important. If we have solid foundational structure, you're going to get better.
Yep.
You will.
Yep.
As long as you're pushing yourself and you're trying hard, hypertrophy is kind of dummy proof. If you're eating enough and you're training hard enough, you will experience some levels of hypertrophy.
That's right. Amen to that. All right, y'all. It's been good. Hope you guys enjoyed the listen, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome.
Great job, man.
Appreciate it.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Kind of run out of things to talk about at some point. But no, you're really good at asking questions because I would be stumped. I'd be like,